Emma, it's good to see you again.
Yeah, it is good to see everybody actually. It's that was such a good convening. So I'm excited to
Yay.
kind of catch up with folks and glad I can actually make it this time. So but yeah.
Here's a shared document. Hi, Kyrie's. To see you too. And Mariano. Mariano, where are you?
Nashville.
Nashville, right. Awesome. That's right. How are things there?
Super duper.
Good. Good, good.
I was curious, Christina, before we get going, how much time were you thinking that we were going to spend talking about the data, uh, if at all, in this meeting?
I don't think I wasn't thinking we'd talk about it here.
Okay, that was for
Yeah.
us. Okay.
Yeah, just,
Oh.
I mean, maybe at like a future one.
Yeah, okay. And John, how long are you anticipating your presentation being?
Oh, I'm hoping for maybe 10, 15 minutes.
Okay, because I do have a piece that I want to add to it, just as it relates to that social and emotional learning piece. So I know you were checking for who, I forget the other person.
Yeah, Katie wasn't able to make it. She got called out of town for something. So
Right.
yeah, we could just go ahead. And we had kind of twice as many people RSVP today than are here, but I think we should just go ahead because it's, people will join.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I know I wasn't trying to waste some long time. I just was.
Oh no, I just think there is time, Marcus, if you want to add for sure. So
Yeah. Okay.
and we
So
could
with
start
all
now.
that, yeah, with all of that, well, welcome to the Hangout, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Marcus Brown from the Kansas City Public Library, Kansas City Digital Media Lab. And so, yeah, today we'll talk about social and emotional learning, but, as we like to do before we jump into the topics, we want to just start with real brief introductions and maybe something you're reading, something you're watching. And I'm happy that football season is back. So I'll say that. Uh, Anybody else? Just feel free to jump in.
Sure, I'm John Brown. I'm from Springfield, Ohio, YOUmedia. And man, what am I doing? I'm honestly, I play in 3 different bands, and so I have a bunch of gigs coming up, and so that's what I'm doing right now.
What instrument?
I play percussion, so sometimes I'm on the drum kit, sometimes I'm on utility, and then I sing and rap, but more sing now than
All right.
now.
It's good stuff.
Hey, what's going on? This is Mark Pedersen from the YOUmedia at the Hartford Public Library. Reading or watching something interesting that I found is an app called Blinkist. It gives you these like bite-sized things that you learn from different books. It's a really great little audio clips that you can like listen to like in the car on the way to work. About every type of book, basically the cliff notes of everything.
Is it helpful?
It is. It's interesting. It gives you like kind of an insight into like the 7 habits of highly effective people, like any of those types of books. They're really interesting insights. And then you can always read into it more. But sometimes I only have like, these little bits of time.
Yeah.
I find it pretty good. That or was a Headspace is good too.
Okay. Well, I'm Mariano, Nashville Public Library, and fantasy football. It's football season. Who was your quarterback last week? Wow, the Bills quarterback. I'm blank. Josh Allen. Yeah, right. I had Justin Herbert on the bench. Too bad. Right. We'll recover. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Hannah McCalebs. I'm with the Mix at the Science Museum of Virginia, along with Matt. Mostly right now, I'm getting ready for Zine Fest. So you can see I've got like this whole bin of zines I have to go through, which is my zine collection. Have to make sure that I pull out all the ones that shouldn't be around the teenagers. So that's what my project is for part of today.
I'll jump in. Yeah, I'm Matt at the Mix, the Science Museum of Virginia. I'm excited about the Rugby World Cup that's going on right now. So, lesser known in this country, but big deal around the world. Today is France, Uruguay. And last week, France beat New Zealand, which was a huge upset. So, anyway.
Who's your squad? So I have somebody to
I mean,
root
the
for.
USA didn't make it to the World Cup this year.
Right.
So if I had to be rooting for somebody this year, maybe Scotland.
Okay.
Yeah.
Go Scotland.
Thanks, Marcus.
I'll jump in just to keep it going on the sports tip. I'm Chuck Leong. I'm from the New York Public Library. I'm a huge basketball junkie, so I'm just gearing up for the start of the regular NBA season. My team is the Golden State Warriors because I was born and raised in San Francisco.
Cool.
I'm Kyrese Devine. I'm here in Kansas City at the Kansas City Digital Media Lab. Piggybacking off Chuck, I'm also waiting on the NBA season to start. I am a Celtics fan through and through. Through and through. I'm a Celtics fan. So yeah.
She is. She paid to go to a game and everything. I couldn't believe it. Do we have anybody else left? Okay.
Hey, I am M. Kelly. I at the Nashville Public Library, and it is as of like yesterday, finally like hot drinks and sitting on the porch to read weather. So I've slowly been working through this book, which is going to be backwards, called Distant Suns, which it's an advanced reader copy, but it's been really good so far. Like the characters they feel like people you'd want to go have a beer with. So I'm really enjoying just the story, but then also just like the, structural ways that the writer is introducing the characters. So that's, my book nerd for the moment.
Cool.
I'll
Think we got-
continue in the Nashville world. I am Nick Tonioni from Nashville Public Library as well. I'll apologize because I'll need to leave in about 10 minutes for a meeting, but I still wanted to see all your shining faces. And I will also go the book nerd route and say I was excited to find the classic The Simpsons Futurama crossover Crisis in our collection. So I'm going to delve into that these next couple of weeks. High literature.
I'll pick up on books too. I'm Christina Cantrell from the National Writing Project, based in Philadelphia. And I just started reading Crying at the H Mart because last week the H Mart that she writes about is right outside Philadelphia in Elkins Park. And I was there with a friend and she was telling me about like how the story unfolded in this space. And then I decided, oh, I have to read it so I can go back. And anyway, it's a memoir and it's hard because she lost her mom. So, but it's a good story. She's a good writer, and I'm enjoying it.
Hi, your name is Broccoli?
Okay. Is it
Alicia,
everybody? Okay.
I think Alicia hasn't gone.
Was that for me? Okay. What was the prompt? I didn't catch the prompt. I got here a few minutes after it insisted that I log in a particular way.
Oh, just who you are and something you're reading or watching or something of that nature.
Oh my. I'm reading because my kids, I have two groups of kids here in my library. They have groups of kids who are like, bring me the thick books like the Lindbergh biography. And I have the bring me to thick graphic novels books, kids. So I'm currently reading A First Time for Everything by Dan Santant, and it is amazing. I highly recommend it. My name's Alicia Woodland from the McMillan Memorial Library here in central Wisconsin. And I just have to throw this in there too, Christina. I was just told by my boss that I've been given a section of the library because, we got moved, a lot of changes. I need to make a new Imago space. Sky's the limit, do whatever I want, but I'm not sure where to start. So, yeah. I want to talk about that with you guys, maybe, if anybody has any ideas.
This is a good place to bring such questions, so.
Yeah, the right
Absolutely.
place, definitely. Yeah.
And there was a question that was put into the communities of practice by Paige Cross. This is just piggybacking on trying to help folks about where to locate, YA books within the space or outside of the space. Again, because that's something that we don't have books in our space. So that's a question that maybe somebody that does have to tackle that problem, because ours is squarely in our teen area, and we didn't have any of the issues of adults coming in to get books that made her conversation, make sense. So again, if we could just, maybe somebody could consider answering that in the communities of practice. So just throw that out there. So definitely we can leave some room on the back end if it makes sense to talk with you as well about yours. So since you're here, especially, it's great.
Yeah, I don't think I have a problem with that area, but thank you.
Mm-hmm. Just wanted to bring that up, just seeing that active use of the communities of practice. And if somebody could answer that, that would be great. I wish I could, but it's not in my wheelhouse. All right, with all of that being said, again, a great convening over the summer. We've had 3 program coordinators transfer off and 3 new program coordinators come on. So with that being said, we have John Brown from Ohio. We would like to thank you for throwing your hat in the ring. Hannah McCallips from, I feel like I'm saying that wrong. No, from the Mix in Virginia.
Don't worry.
And Mark Pedersen from YOUmedia Hartford. So again, thanks for answering the call to step into the leadership. I've definitely gotten a lot out of this process. I hope you guys can get a lot out of it. And especially at this time where we're rebuilding, trying to put a little bit more gas in the tank and really thinking how we can level up the organization. Not only just to amplify the work that we're doing, but how can we, solidify this YOUmedia piece as the go-to guys around this work that we're doing, which makes all of these topics that we have listed for discussion over the next few months important. So with that being said, just as any of the new program coordinators want to just take a quick moment to say something before we jump into our topic for today. I mean, just why you maybe decided and what you might like to get out of the process or something of that nature.
I look forward to kind of learning about the process and seeing where I can help improve the network. And, I definitely like to see more like cohesion between all of the YOUmedias. And that's, exactly what the community practice is about.
I was about to say it was so great meeting all of you guys during the our convening that I was just like, oh, I would love to be involved more and get to talk to you all more. Which is why I was like, please let me in.
And John, since you're last, unless there's anything else to be said, you can just lead right in.
Sure. Well, and I wanted to join up and throw my hat in. Just, I don't know. I was intrigued and honestly inspired by being a part of the convening and seeing the group as a whole and being connected with just like-minded people and wanting to, reach kids through this process and how all that works. And yeah, it was great. It was just a great time and wanted to be, more and more a part of it. So, and then with that, we had the big discussion with the roundtables and after our last Hangout meeting, we wanted to address and discuss some of the social emotional learning piece. And And so I'm going to just kind of talk about where I come from as far as the YOUmedia. I work with a school district in Springfield. And if you hear the construction, they're actually working in our building right now. So I apologize for that. But my role is the YOUmedia coordinator, and I have two other coordinators that I work with, Renee and Chris. And Renee is all about projects, and she's like does the programs and writes it up so that the school district can have the right verbiage and vocabulary for what we do in YOUmedia as far as crossing over to what they need and look for as far as the district goes. And then Chris is our mentor coordinator, and so he reaches out to the city and we get interns from the local colleges. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I have 6 adults that come in, and they work for us as mentors every week. And so I have a lot of adults and a lot of interaction, and we have typically 3 to 4 workshops running at a time every day, and they're different. We try to stagger them out so that way when the bus shows up with the kids, we could have, like last week, one day we had 102 students here, and so we're trying to put them all in different areas so that way they're engaged that way. I try, as far as the social emotional piece, to communicate with our mentors that not everyone needs to connect with everyone, but connect with someone. And we all have our niche, and we all have, we have the ability to connect with somebody. And I've seen lots of conversations, lots of kids confiding and being vulnerable with their life situations just based off of people listening. And so we've run into different things as far as, some social relational issues. One of my students, she just had a baby in August, and the dad is in the room dating a different girl now, and she's 15, and that's a whole dynamic. And then we also have some suicidal students that we've worked with. I don't want to say dealt with, but we've worked with, and really found a home in YOUmedia. And they became regulars, and we helped them with school and graduated, and just was listening ears. Sometimes we just walk out into a different section of the building and, what's going on? Talk to me, and just taking that moment to do that. And yeah. And so with that, there's also, I tried to, with the help of Chris and Renee, we come up with different incentives. If you're active in the workshops during the week, the following week, we have pizza. If you have good grades, for the quarter, you qualify for a special dinner with a friend. We have fall parties, winter parties, year-end celebrations, and just connecting the students with what's going on so that they can own a piece of this. And I'll get some that are interested in photography and video, and they do that. I have some that are into graphic design, and they'll engage in that. We also, with our studio, which seems to be booked all the time, we're open every minute. We're going to start a concert series, and we're going to bring an artist in once a month, and then allow some of the students that have appropriate music to perform and showcase what they do, as long as it fits the program, and they can write with good lyrics and that kind of thing. And so we're really working on song structure and that kind of thing. And it's really the energy in the space this year has drastically changed with engagement. And Yeah, I mean, so that's what we're doing. And honestly, as a school district, they changed their whole philosophy this year around this, the 7 habits of highly effective people. Um, from preschool to high school, they have engaged Leader in Me, which is a book by Stephen Covey. And with that, their whole format and structure, like the way that we talk and how we present information as a district, revolves around that 7 habits. And so we're incorporating that with our everyday language, having the end in mind and setting goals and what can you control and what can you not control and that kind of thing. And it's been really interesting and you know, there's always some tug of war, but it's been enlightening and I think a good tool to use and engage across the board with all of the students. So other than that, I mean, I have stories with kids and that kind of thing, but I kind of wanted to just kind of end it there and just see if there was questions or things that we could discuss as a group, you know, that maybe running into with others, with you know, students in your spaces.
Yeah, the component that I had just wanted to add, I had just went in and looked at, you know, because when I was hearing this social emotional learning piece and started looking at some of the research, I was like, wow, this sounds wildly similar to Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Yeah.
And just within that, just thinking about that, and also as it relates to the YOUmedia hallmarks and 21st century learning. And so now we're in this capacity, and now we're getting new labels for things that has already been laid out. How do we not do all the research over again? Because even if I want to share my screen real quick, and if I can, Christina.
Sorry, it always defaults to not letting you, sorry. Okay, there you are.
Oh,
You should be able to.
yeah. Okay. Yeah. So again, just if we look, I'm not going to necessarily read this to you guys because you guys can read. Self-awareness, self-management, responsibility, responsible decision-making, relationship skills, social awareness. Just those main 4 things. They're laid out with another tier as we see them on the second slide. Then I compare them to our YOUmedia hallmarks. Again, opportunities to hang out, mess around, culture that prioritizes equity, inclusion, youth leadership, access to tools, technology, mentors, you know, again, the like. Then we go back to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, self-actualization, esteem, love, and belonging. So there's a lot of research around this. And again, we can look at other people's research, or we can look at how we use our own research that aligns with these things, kind of as the barometer for what we're doing and having a larger conversation around this work. We can use social emotional learning, which I think is great, but also at the same time, we can use YOUmedia hallmarks and connected learning when we're having this language as well. So that's just kind of my piece that I had was thinking about when we were having this topic. I didn't like have presentation, but just wanted to say that just leading into the discussion.
I kind of wanted to look at the slides longer, honestly.
Oh, I can definitely put them back up there. Sure, no problem. Okay. This is the social and emotional learning charts. They just pretty much came up standard. If you do an internet search, you'll see these at the very beginning. I didn't have to go deep, but you know, I saw some great stuff around it. Virginia Commonwealth University. I mean, it's happening at all levels. Obviously, it's heavy research being done around this work. And again, my thought is that once I looked at, you know, the YOUmedia hallmarks and the connected learning, I'm like, man, there's a lot of this, you know, heavy thinking came right out of the people that have been a part and have grown in this network. So as we're thinking about this language, how does our language, also inform this? And also at the same time, well, ours is bulleted. Maybe we need some nice new graphics around ours that are staged. But they're there. It's the same stuff. And what we see and anecdotally what John was talking about is that at the center of it is, again, being human towards people. And then we're good here. And I can make this available in the slide deck to the group as well. That's what I can do too. Again, the Maslow's hierarchy of need, that was the one that we were using when I was in the classroom in the 90s. And so again, that along with the depth of knowledge, which I know is still being used, again, allowed for us to really look at the young people that we were serving in a different way. So again, my thing is that I want our research to be in the forefront as we having these conversations. That's all.
One thing I'm curious about is, I think across like folks' spaces, like what issues are you guys dealing with right now when it comes to like the youth that you serve? Like, have you had any kind of specific, like, I guess like, teen problems that they're coming up with that you're like, I question my response to this, or like, I'm not sure, what is the best way to handle this? Because I feel like the very nature of our space is like, you kind of just make judgment calls, like regardless of what, training we might have. But yeah, I'd be kind of curious to see like what issues you guys are having in the spaces, or questions you might have. And I also have some other questions for later about like just different trainings like folks have received. I also want to talk about if any of you guys deal with mandatory reporting in your spaces, but just those are some starter questions I had for this discussion.
Yeah, definitely. We just had that conversation about mandatory reporting, and the Kansas City Public Library is not a mandatory reporter like, say, the schools are. But it does bring a whole nother level of awareness of how we have young people in our space, and we have to think about it. One of the great examples that I have from our last summer, school was getting out, and a young man, he just came to me. I was kind of busy, and then he was like, Mr. Brown, man, I don't like being at home. And it's like, why not? He's like, well, because my mom drinks too much, and I don't like to be around it. And it's like, wow, okay. So normally with our team digital, the criteria is that you have to, want to come in and create and be thoughtful of within the digital realm of photography, art, music production, or something of that nature. He didn't really have those interests, but I knew he needed to be out of the house and doing something that was going to be thoughtful and engaging. So I definitely, he had to go through the interview process, fill out the application and all of that. And then, we let him into the program. They were in the process of moving. He missed the first entire half of the program, right? And, somebody missed half, you got to make up the whole thing in the second half. We were saying, do we think he's going to show up? And it's like, but he wound up, we left it open so that he could, and he wound up making up all of the time that he missed. And again, that's that thing. I'm using that anecdote is because there's not necessarily a right way or a wrong way. You can do it better, and then you could do it better again, and then you could do it better again. And because we are thoughtful people in general, we'll process that. Was that the best response to that child's problem? Could I have done something different? Could I have been proactive more in this situation? Just luckily, we had the situation where we create something and have the flexibility for this young man to still participate and not feel like he's going at it alone. And the interesting thing that when he came to me to broach that conversation, it was other people in the room. So it was really something that he really had to say right then and there. And again, that's that piece that you can't necessarily train for. We can go through all of these scenarios, but nothing is going to train you for getting your heartstrings tugged on in that manner and what you might do. So I'll stop there and let somebody else respond or chime in. I hope that helped, Hannah.
Yeah, I feel like in that kind of reminds me of like I think one thing we very much strive for our space is like this is the space where you don't have to worry about getting things perfect, you know, and
Right.
that like kind of giving them the room to kind of be there the way that they can be there. I think, you know, one thing we've dealt with in this space is you know, I think youth are often like very much influenced by the spaces they like, the things that they're seeing, the spaces that they go home to, what their parents are saying. And you know, I think one of the things we deal with the most is you know, we have a lot of kids who are like, you know, YouTube educated, and maybe not in the things that are most like emotionally healthy or I mean, I think this one we've all dealt with. And we've had plenty of students like come in and kind of exhibit like a lot of like problematic behaviors in terms of like the way that they talk about others, you know, where they're kind of bringing up like things that are maybe not necessarily appropriate to talk about, or to talk about other people that way. And it's kind of like I think our instinct these days is to kind of like shut that down and just be like, oh no, don't do that. And I think one thing we've been trying to do here is like kind of be like, okay, if there is going to be a space where they get another perspective or like they have a chance to kind of be like, hey, you know, you need to like other people are human beings and you're a human being, is to kind of be that space that kind of connects them a little bit better to reality and to their community and others. We've had like you know, in terms of like specific anecdotes, we've had a student we've known since she was like 12 years old, and she's turning 19 in February, and was very like YouTube like educated, did not believe in a lot of things, which as a science institution can be a little bit funny. You're like, you're at a science museum. And was also, you know, I think had some very like problematic views about like trans people specifically. And we were really worried when she left the space because she moved. We're like, oh, okay, well, we tried our best and let's hopefully, you know, see if that, you know, gave her some different perspective. And she came back like a year later, like, you know, when she returned home for the summer and was like, Hannah, guess what? I'm trans now. And I'm sorry for all the things that I said. And has just been like a very like dedicated, interested member of our community and like kind of I don't know. I think you're just like giving them kind of space to be wrong and to kind of patiently like, you know, not to put up with behaviors that stop your space from being a safe, inclusive space, but to be the kind of patient voice of reason that's like, I'm gonna invest in you. And yeah. But I don't know, just something that I feel like we deal with a lot in our space.
Uh, Christina was wondering, she says, I don't know if we already did in the chat, how colleagues in your space work together and learn from each other about how to support youth. Is it just by chance and situation to situation, or do you have regular check-ins, structures, processes? Yeah, for us in particular, we do talk about the young people on a regular basis, especially the regular basis that are, you know, the regulars that come into the space. So we're able to see them consistently over a period of time. And so again, grades, we know who's good in math and not good in math. We know who can read well and who needs, you know, assistance there. We know who's great at art. You know, again, we know who's having what kind of issues at home or at school. Because we talk about that, you know, hey, well, did you see such and such a come in? Or we haven't seen such and such in a while. And so then that keys us in when we do get this person in the space, then now we can have that conversation where you've been. Even so, they come in on a regular basis to the lab. And if one of the regulars did, well, does he come to school today? well, where is she? And so now they know it's another level of inquiry, and we're trying to figure that out as well. So that's what we do. It's not necessarily a meeting per se, but we have awareness about the young people that we see on a regular, that we do ask about their well-being and where they are, and see how we can support it.
Marcus, can I ask a follow-up question?
Sure.
That I know that you have like part of your Homago structure is that you're simultaneously just like a drop-in library open space, and you have registered participants in a more geek out level. And so when you're talking about developing that knowledge of like where they're at, the kids who are in your space a lot, I assume that some of those kids who are in your space a lot, like ours, are not content creators in the space. They want a place to hang out, to play some video games, to eat snacks and see other kids. They stay in the hangout realm. Do you
Absolutely.
find do you I'm curious to know if you are feeling that your team is successful in getting to those conversations about who's doing well in math, who's struggling, who's succeeding in other areas with your kids who are in your space at the hangout level as well? Or are you mostly, because we're mostly just getting to that with our geeking out kids, and those other kids remain kind of a mystery to us. And I worry a little bit about the bifurcation of the kids who are in our space. And so if you're doing that well, I'd love to hear more about it.
Well, yeah, fortunately, because they know that's a prerequisite that we're going to ask about it. And it's not just like, how was school? Fine, good. Way more than that. Because then, 20 minutes later, they're going to be asking you for 50 cents to go to the vending machine. You can't ask me anything and think that I'm not going to ask you about school. And so, but that's also the beauty of the space too, is that you will have that bifurcation. Some people will buy into it and some people will hang out, and then you will hope they will each to the other side. But we do still ask them academically to give us a thoughtful response about what they've been engaging in, at bare minimum, but we don't press that. Because the ones that come in and nerd out, they just come in, grab the equipment that they want, and then they're, moving forward. And then they need to be checked in on or leveled up. Then we check in and level up. And then other people might just come in and lay down. It is that, because I'd rather get you off the floor into something still than to find you at home. Now it's more steps to go through. So, but yeah, I mean, that was, again, as an educator, we can't win them all. We'd love to, but the reality is that we won't win every student.
I'll say something too in terms of like getting to know them and building those relationships. Something we do at the Nashville space, in both the studio space but also on the teen side, is like we have whiteboards that ask questions, and it can be anything from like, what are you watching, or like, what are you listening to? Who's your favorite musician? Or like, if you were a type of song, like, what kind would you be? And like has like a quadrant grid and they have to put a dot. And that's a fun way for some of the kids who have not yet opened up enough to like really want to talk to you. Like they usually will do something on the board. Or like if you have something to draw or whatever. And then a lot of times too, like, I think especially as they start to feel comfortable sharing in different formats, a lot of them want to talk to you. Like at a certain point, sometimes you have to be like, I can't hear this. Like they open up a lot once they start. So like, there are things you can do to kind of ease it, but I wouldn't worry about it long term, because I feel like, they'll start talking to you. And if you talk to them about some anime show that they're watching, eventually they'll get around to like how they're doing in school, or like, how they're doing at home.
Yeah. Well, let me be clear too. They talk to us now. We engage them fully. Now, we don't always engage them in programming. That's the difference. They will talk to us. They'll play Uno and Phase 10 and, whatever the case may be. And we'll have good conversation about that. But we can't necessarily move them to the geeking out stage like some of the other regulars do. To the point where we recognize that, and we want that element to be a thing, right? And so now we're saying, where are we going to get the young people that are going to geek out more in the space? And so now we're looking more towards that tween population to be formally geeking out, because we really have a great relationship with those young people coming in after school. And so again, you'll decide and we'll decide, and we can ask them to do stuff all the time as well, and they'll do it. But ultimately, if you had, 7 hours of school, I'm still going to leave it up to you to decide what level you want to engage, and have room for it.
I agree with you, Marcus, because once the kids have been working on a screen for 7 hours, they may not necessarily want to go to the recording studio and look at a screen for 7 hours. They might do that on the weekend, but they're not,
Mhm.
they not want to put 2 or 3 hours in after they've done their 7 hours in school. But one thing that I think you mentioned that's really important is, working with them at the tween level and really building the relationship over years. And that comes to fruition, at least here in Wisconsin, in really great ways, because you've been engaging them since they were 11. And honestly, with some of the 11-year-olds, they can be ignored because they're not teens, they're not kids. So they kind of get ignored. If you engage them at that level and say, hey, let's do this, or hey, have you thought about this? Are you looking at that? Do you know how to use a recording studio? They're like, oh, I can learn that. Yeah, go ahead. And over time, it becomes a part of their day, but part of their life. And you can sit in there while they're telling you how they made this sick beat, and you can sit there and they can tell you about their day. So it goes and it ebbs and it flows in really great ways. And recently I had a kid who, we have a gardening program because we're trying to feed into our food pantry organic food. So with my gardening program out in the community, I had a kid who's normally just a theater kid, straight theater, nothing else. She stopped and said, looked around the garden, looked at me and said, I really love this. And I really enjoy, helping people eat healthy, but you do a lot more than this, don't you? You've got great stuff happening at the library. I think I'll do more stuff at the library. And I'm like, okay, it just took a year and a half. Okay. But you never know when the penny's going to drop and they're like, oh, wait, yeah, I could make stuff in the makerspace. Yeah, you sure could, hon. You sure could. So just never give up and keep, showing, explaining, and encouraging them to engage in what you have happening. Even if you've told them 3 times, I think you guys know it. Sometimes it takes more than just the couple of, you think you said it 3 times. They heard you maybe half of that time, partially through the fog of exhaustion. So again, talk to them about it more than 3 times, talk to them about it in different ways, approach this same wonderful thing you have happening in a variety of different ways, and the penny might drop in the most unexpected place when you're pulling up potatoes in the middle of the garden. You never know when it's going to drop.
Right. Absolutely. And again, that's the good thing about having good mentors dedicated to the space and these young people. That's the one thing that they thrive on is consistency, man. And that's one of my watermarks. Is if you miss days and the students don't miss you, then we might need to replace you. They did better miss you.
I was just gonna say, piggybacking off the tweens. So last year when we did our team digital program, the record label project, that was the first time that our team was pretty young. So we had 11 and 12-year-olds, and they went through the whole process. But then they came back again this summer as 12 and 13-year-olds, and this time they were helping lead the project. So again, I'm agreeing with you, capturing them in that 10, 11, and 12-year age will keep them in the space.
I'll also say too, when it comes to talking to them and like trying to get them to also do something, and Mariana can probably speak to this better than I can, but in the space we do podcasting every week, and that gives them a space to talk, but it's also like, especially as they start getting into it, they keep coming every week. You're like, okay, cool, help me set this up, learn how to do this. You can do this. You come in on a day I'm not here, a day on Saturday. And then from there, sometimes some of them will get deeper into editing or, adding weird sound effects or things like that. But It's still like finding a way to use tech, but it's also just a space to like give them that platform to talk to each other.
I have a question. So our YOUmedia, we don't have the specific space for it, but we still run programs. And I was wondering, for those of you who may have started program based, when you have your programs, because we've got a lot of programs where people will come like 1 or 2 times. But also we recognize that it's not necessarily like when teens have free time or when they want to. Like for instance, I have like 11:31 on Saturdays, but I'm like, when I was a teenager, any of my free time, like I wanted to sleep. So I recognize that we might just be missing the time. So I'm wondering if you guys could share like when like the hype times that teens are engaging in your spaces.
Have you
Can
asked
I
them?
jump to that? Oh, sorry.
Oh, I just asked, have you asked them what time is good?
They don't come like often enough to like build that kind of rapport. I try to just let them know that it's for them. Like for instance, I've gotten a lot of feedback on, I do a lot of art-based stuff, and I get a lot of feedback regarding supplies that they'd like to see, but not necessarily times. But I will ask them. I'm just picking your brains because your brains are right here.
I'm sorry, what site are you from?
Norfolk, Virginia?
Norfolk.
Yeah.
Great. So I'm from San Francisco. Our space has been open for about 8 years now. And from my vantage point, it took us about 5 years to start to figure out, like there's this word of mouth, getting the program up and running, building your community, figuring out, talking to kids, what works well. And I think for me, really coaching your librarian staff and yourself to look at perfectionism and expectations and defining success is really important here. That maybe this isn't what's happening there, but
Yeah,
the
we've got a
experience of
really
planning.
great tween base.
Yeah,
Our
right.
tweens are here.
Right. And expect like designing a great program at a time where you think it's going to work and you don't get a great group, where you get 3 and then only 1 comes the next time. I think that really observing how over time that can be frustrating and sad making for your staff, and working with them not to define that as a failure or like a failure in finding the right time for youth, and just accepting that keeping on offering it, keeping it in the schedule at a time that you think might stick, and accepting that you might end up doing something else, or having something in the schedule that you named certification time, and people found that as a time to bring in drop-in projects, and getting real flexible about what you do, like staying flexible in what you do in the defined times, not giving up on the idea of defined programs as like, well, that didn't work, so we know that didn't work and it made me sad, so we stop it. Like, I don't quite know how to articulate how a lot of what we start to look at as problem solving, catching the teens when they come in, is really kind of disappointment and frustration management for the staff, and struggling through how the program's success is going to look. I don't even know if that's a helpful comment, but it has good intentions and there's
I was
meaning in
just
there
gonna
somewhere.
say, again, just on the glass half full, you do have the tweens coming in. So again, maybe there's something about the demographics and the time shifts in the neighborhood that makes that be your target audience. Because our teens, like we tried to do Saturday programming, I still hold that over Kyrese's head. You're supposed to work Saturdays, but they don't come. Right? We can't get the teens here on Saturdays because they will come after school. They won't come the teens don't come generally during breaks because they're at home. They're not going to leave and come here. They will leave school and come here faithfully, but they're not going to come here out of their regular trek, if you will. And so that makes us look at the demographic that we can get in here, which is tweens, because they're going to be dropped off by their parents. So we have to just look at the dynamic differently.
I also talk to my kids about their work schedules. And what I've noticed is that with my older teens, sometimes their work schedules will impede them from when they can come. And
Yeah.
believe it or not, at least around here, my kids can have 2 to 3 jobs. They're very bizarre, but they're gonna buy that car. They're gonna pay for that first year of school. They're doing that kind of stuff. So I found out that 2 o'clock on a Saturday afternoon works for some kids because they're done with work and they'll come here and have, just relax, chill out, geek out, whatever time. That's when they can come. But that is going to be, they will literally tell their boss, I can't work the first Saturday of any month because that's when we're doing club. And they make it a priority, but they need to have this, like, they need to know that it's going to be consistent. It can't just be like a once a quarter thing because their boss needs to know, oh yeah, John always gets off first Saturdays. And it becomes a thing. And that's how I, have been able to do Saturday work. But I also have to make changes now because my coworkers are like, oh, I want that day. My kids are gonna love it when I tell them as they discover the change. Can't wait for this fall semester.
Right. There's a lot to consider here. We got about 10 minutes left in our session. I just want to make sure
Marcus,
just from the
Hannah has had her hand raised for a while, so.
Oh, okay. Thank you. I'm sorry.
I just didn't know if you
I
had
was
seen
checking
No,
in.
I
Sorry.
don't even worry about it. All good.
Go, you're good, or you're holding your peace? Is that what you're saying? Okay. Sorry. Sorry, Matt, were you raising your hand? I'm looking now. Look,
I'll
I'm
add
all
one
on the hut.
thing. I'll add one thing real quick. I definitely agree with everything that was just said about sticking with a schedule and, kind of managing expectations. We have Friday times for our teens, 3 to 6 p.m. It's always been that way. It's never been heavily attended, but we still do it for those teens who can make it on Fridays, and maybe they just do some homework. Maybe they just hang out for a couple of hours. And also another thing we did at the very beginning when we started the space was get a teen advisory council together. That could be done physically, that could be done digitally, whatever it is. But again, you're getting teen input. You're really, listening to them about what is that timing, that would be good for them on a Saturday, or maybe it's not, so yeah, maybe that's something you all could do in Norfolk too. Definitely, a time investment, both in staff and those meetings and everything, but I think it might be worth it for teen input.
I'll just quick add also that, like, I feel like building up teen programs are like reintroducing animals to the wild. It takes a long time. It's like when you're trying to get puffins to go somewhere, there already have to be puffins. So the fact that you have tweens coming means that in a couple years, like, they've bought in and they will bring their friends. Like, our first couple years, we had like dead days all the time. When we restarted our program, we've had like 3 days we didn't have anybody this entire year. And it's because all the younger siblings have come, even though we've been closed for a long time. So like, it's a trickle and then it's a flood. So don't stress out. The puffins will return.
Enjoy the quiet and plan to be busy.
All right. Anything? That's a great discussion. I hope folks were able to glean something. But the biggest thing is that again, we all work in different containers, different cities. Some of these things align. Some of these things make sense because again, we sit right across from schools, and so that's why that makes sense. Again, our ability to be laissez-faire versus, say, John, who is directly related to academic success and what he has to have in his program. It makes us have to be proactive in different ways. And so, again, what this gives us a chance to look at how other people are approaching it. It's not right, wrong, or indifferent because we all operate in our own containers. So just in the interest of time, we got 6 minutes. I know we had a possible question that wanted to be answered. I also wanted to check in with Christina and make sure we dot all the I's and cross the T's before we get out of here as well.
I definitely feel like since I think got into talking about youth engagement a little bit more, I know one thing we're thinking about is like returning to social emotional learning like in March, which I feel like would definitely be a good idea. because I feel like there's still like a lot more to talk about with them.
Absolutely. And again, that doesn't have nothing precludes folks from putting something in the community to practice and us starting ad hoc conversations or sharing resources around it as well. We don't have to wait months to continue conversations that we think are valid. Or if it's something that we strongly feel about, then hey, why wait? Why not put it on the next agenda item so we can get some folks some tools that they may need in the short term versus the long term. So I'm always a fan of that.
In the so I just put in the chat the list. I'll start to clean this up. Hold on. For the future hangouts coming up, and these are all sort of based on the conversations that were had at the convening. So as Hannah just pointed out, there was a suggestion to maybe come back to this SEL topic, the social emotional learning topic in March, kind of like let things sort of percolate and think about it more and think about the questions you have and then come back to this at the March meeting. And then there was a proposal for the next meeting to really dive into AI. That was a very active discussion at the convening, and several people were particularly interested in sort of touching base about the implications of AI in spaces. And another proposal came up for the sort of aging up and out conversation, maybe in the new year. So but these are dates to save on your calendar, and there's a handy dandy flyer, and for some reason I can't seem to upload it here. I thought I could upload it here, so I'll just repost it in the community practice so you could all get it there. But yeah, I guess just like opening a discussion about these future hangouts and where you'd like to focus these conversations, or how you'd like to focus these conversations.
Hey, I will be moving in December to the Dallas area. I was wondering if it's okay with the YOUmedia people, if I can try to introduce it wherever I land to be able to bring it over to Texas, because I don't know if there's anybody over there just yet.
There was a museum in Houston that was part of the network at one point.
Okay.
Not sure if there still are, but
They
hey,
are
Dal-
still,
hey,
yeah.
yeah.
Fine Arts Museum in Houston.
Mhm.
And there was a program in Dallas, so we should introduce you to some folks also at a art museum though.
Okay.
So I think, and yes, you can introduce YOUmedia everywhere, and we're happy
Absolutely.
to. We have a
I know it's a system that you have to like be invested in, and just being like, hey, I'm a part of this YOUmedia organization. I'd like to bring it to wherever I land. I think that would be helpful to myself, and I think it would be helpful to the YOUmedia network, if that's okay.
Fabulous. Happy
Absolutely.
to share some materials with you. Sorry, I shouldn't talk for the network. Go ahead.
Thank you.
No, absolutely. Again, I mean, there's no reason our work gets done because we don't hold our cards close to the vest. So I think that's huge. And who better to champion our work than us?
And I really think it's that those hallmarks as an organizing principle are really the key pieces. Sorry, Hannah, were you going to say something?
No worries. We actually had some teens move out to the Dallas area, and we're really upset that they were gonna miss the mix. So if you go there and open one up, I think they've got some younger siblings who'd like to go.
All right. Are we, does everybody, man, I thought the discussion was great today. Well, in particular, I just felt like everybody gave really thoughtful responses, and the energy seems great too. Like nobody's on the low today. So I thought that's great too. So, I just want to thank everybody participating. Again, want to thank Hannah, John, and Mark for deciding to take those leadership roles. Man, and I just look forward to doing good work. Anybody else have anything to say before we get out? like to leave it
Yeah,
open.
I just wondered about for some of those open subject days, something that's been coming up for us. I wonder if it resonates with others, sort of a related social emotional conversation, specifically um like something about like loneliness and boys right now coming out of COVID lockdown. It feels like there is still this residual out, like the girls in our space are doing more group activities, collaborative activities in a higher level right now. The boys are gravitating to sort of solo gameplay, solo recording experience. There's a lot of social, like a lot of ink is being spilled on like this male loneliness and teen loneliness. And that specific piece we're seeing in our groups that not like boys not thriving. Does that resonate with the group?
Yeah, I'm seeing that pretty habitually as far as our area here in Springfield. So
I'm addressing it every way I can, but it's devastating. And I've got people cutting themselves off from their family and yeah. So they're like, Miss Alicia, you talk to him. I'm like, okay, Mom, why don't we talk to him? Dad, why don't we talk to him? Yeah, so yeah.
Right. And it's like the quietly not problematic loner in the space who does politely decline from being involved. I don't know, like some.
Well, I'm gonna jump in real quick and say that you know, because I don't want people to feel like they got to hang out. But if because we're now at 101, and I have another meeting off camp away from the site to myself personally, so I do need to get ready to get out of here. But I don't want to keep people from dialoguing if there's people that still want to talk. That's the beautiful thing too. So
I was proposing it as a future hangout topic, just to hang in the air to discuss if there's interest, because we have some spaces.
I
But if
wrote
it's
it
too
down. I
Yeah.
wrote it down, Megan, as a possibility. So that sounds great.
Great, thanks.
Okay, so we do want to respect everybody's time. Again, I thank you guys for convening today. Christina, you good?
Yeah, we're good.
All right.
Thanks, everyone. So appreciate
All
it.
right.
Nice to see you
All
all.
right. Be sure to check out Paige's comment if you could support her with the YA books too as well.
And we will follow up, Alicia. Why don't a little subgroup will see if we can convene and support Alicia on her moves, or send you an email at least
It's
to
like,
start
just
that
keep it under
conversation.
35,000. But if you have to go over, go over. I'm like, okay. So
All right, we'll follow up.
Bye.
All right. Have a good day.
Ciao, everyone.